innovative volunteerism actor and was guided to retool my skills and abilities and work with my colleagues so that together we now offer clean cooking solutions to the community.
The dryer takes shorter time, so their work mostly is rice. That's what they do, so it's going to take a shorter time to dry.
I am a rice grower, and at the same time, I'm a businesswoman.
There in the farm.
All right, and what would you say to the innovative volunteerism youth who built these dryers?
Okay, to the innovative volunteerism service,
Yes.
we can say God to bless them abundantly,
Yes.
so because they have helped us very much.
All right, thank you very much, Tabitha.
As a youth who has retooled my skills to now make the clean energy briquettes, I am very happy to continue making solutions. And it has helped me myself because apart from the marketing degree that I got in campus, now I have other things that I can actually make with my hands. And these are things that touch lives. I have extra skills and I am very, very happy to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Welcome to this evening show on the Mindset Sport, where we discuss innovative volunteerism voices geared towards addressing climate change challenges as well as showcasing practical solutions that each and every one of us can take. Today, we are going to be having a conversation on values and the standards each and every one of us must be able to set and also leverage to be able to turn challenges into opportunities. Because let's face it, the reality is that most of the time, the soft aspects that are needed to address the challenges that we face as a global community, especially the climate change challenge that is already turbocharging the events we see from droughts to floods to heat waves across the entire world, we have to then look deeper into the kind of values, into the kind of standards and benchmarks that we need to leverage. And today, this discussion will focus on this. Because if you look at what is happening across the world, the climate change is with us. But I'll put in perspective the aspects of values, starting with this. Just consider the scenario. You are boarding a public bus for a routine trip in a rainy morning. You then realize that the seat you paid for is torn and is in tatters and dirty and wet from rainwater ingressed through an open window. What would you do? If you respect yourself, as most people do, you would immediately and without question ask to be assigned a different seat. And if there is none available, you would likely ask for a refund to board a different bus. This simple example demonstrates that we all desire value for money instinctively. As a matter of fact, most times we desire to get more than our worth and our worth. And that is why the bargain area of any story is the most attractive for most shoppers. Marketing statistics shows that up to 93% of shoppers use a coupon or discount throughout the year. We can sell up to 73% more of our products if we offer a bonus pack. If you ask around, you are likely to find out that 7 out of every 10 shoppers must have an email discount in a week, and that 75% of customers or consumers check their emails inbox to look for discounts. But the question is, if we desire to receive value so much, are we willing to offer value? Are we willing to offer value? Across many places in the world, I have come to realize that this is to not be the case, but anecdotically speaking, you will find that a lot of people, from relatives to friends to colleagues, sometimes do not actually see it from this perspective, that we have to be able to offer value for value. So what value can you offer to turn climate challenges into opportunities? is a conversation today. Because as long as we continue with a mindset of seeking to draw maximum value on this planet Earth, instead of offering maximum value to be able to turn the environmental challenges into opportunities, we'll be missing a great opportunity that is in front of us today. Because we know that to catapult and address the challenges, especially in the African continent, to catapult the continent to higher productivity will depend on the values that each and every one of us can offer, the standards we can set. Why is this a potential silver bullet, you might ask? It is recorded that a skilled person capable of turning challenges into opportunities is 4 times the value of produced capital and 14 times the value of natural capital. The World Bank analysis showed that spending just one additional year enhancing your skills and attitudes to work productivity raises earnings by an average of 10% per year. This is higher than any alternative investment that you can think of. It's higher than any alternative investment that an individual could make. Alternative investments such as buying a physical asset would give you just about 7.4%. But enhancing your skill gives you what? 10%. A saving account will give you 4.7%. Enhancing 3.8. This means that there is no investment that is better than building the right attitude, building value for people to be able to offer and turning challenges to opportunities. This tourism relates to any development at any level. As individuals, we can resolve to take specific actions that will drive and turn the challenges, the climate change challenges, into opportunities wherever we are, regardless of what we do. Because this planet, we have to save it. And the first thing we need to do is we must aim to exchange value for value. What we need to do as individuals is to prioritize value for value. For everything we do, we must seek to exchange it with value. So support those who are engaged in offering value. Like we look across the entire African continent, the young people are offering value. They are retooling their skill in this period of innovative volunteerism. And they are turning community challenges into opportunities. And what we need to do, secondly, is to develop purposeful passion. Passion is the new currency of now, because it is the fuel that will enable us to be consistent in our endeavors of offering value. And to cultivate passion, the only question we need to answer ourselves honestly is, what am I useful for? And the correct answer to this question is, we are only useful if we engage our abilities, if we engage our interests, if we engage our ongoing work in doing that which touches many lives beyond our immediate circles. And that is what we must do. The third is skills retooling. Once you resolve to develop purposeful passion and be useful, you will soon realize that there will be gaps in your skill sets. What does that mean? To bridge those gaps, skills retooling needs to be part of your lifestyle. We must then continuously match up our skills with the gaps in terms of solutions needed by the society to turn climate challenges into opportunities. And then resolve to continuously improve, refine, and adapt our skills and talents, as well as the ongoing work to bring ourselves up to par in delivering transformational climate action solutions in the community. And that takes me to the fourth point, which is discipline. Self discipline is key. All the above actions I've mentioned will not be possible if we are undisciplined. Self discipline means doing things not because it is convenient to do them or favorable to do so, but because one has a deep seated conviction that it is the right thing to do to turn community challenges into opportunities, to ensure that mothers in community can have a solar dryer, can have access to fuel briquettes that will take them off depending on charcoal. That's what we must do. And this is the discussion that we are having today. Value, standards, and this is it. So please, if you have questions, share them so that at least we can be able to have this conversation on how do we nurture the right attitude to then be able to drive transformational climate action. That's the discussion this evening. And you should share your comments on whether you viewing this on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. Please share your ideas so that at least we can get this going as we discuss these aspects. Value is important. Value is very, very important, and we must be able to ensure that at least we can be able to leverage that to turn challenges into opportunities. One of the key aspects that sometimes we can be able to look at very detailedly is that when you look at the changing climate, which 2 days ago the World Meteorological Organization released a report that shows that we are at a 50-50 chance to hit 1.5 degrees. And as we're speaking today, the continent of Africa is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world. And every preceding report has established this fact. That it means if the world was to hit 1.5 degree, which we are now, 50-50, it's a 50-50 chance that we are going to hit 1.5 degree as a global community. Then you will see mothers suffering, more crop failure, more drought and floods, more cyclones causing flooding like the ones we saw hitting South Africa just a couple of weeks ago. This then means that in addition to needing huge sums of money to build resilience of community, we also need to focus on nurturing the attitude of the citizens to be able to play their part. Because each and every one of us must play our part. We must play our part. And I would like to hear from you also what you are doing or ideas that you might like to share or you might like to be clarified. Across the continent, we see young people who are doing work, and they're doing excellent work. And I can be able then to bring to you the work that these young people are doing. And you can see, for example, this work that David is doing in Uganda.
Snack making, which is value addition, briquettes making, and also training them on how they can access machines to make climate action solutions. So, members have come today to be trained, and this has been mainly on bagia making. We have seen that this group got a solar dryer. They have been drying cassava, soya, maize, and other products in their solar dryer, but they have not been having other products they have not been having the knowledge to add on value on these products apart from selling when they are dry, clean. But we have enabled them to start selling value added products from the cassava to bagia. So we have also previously been training them on ecosystem based adaptation approaches, planting the cassava well in the gardens, growing the soya, intercropping with other crops, intercropping soya with cassava, maize, and also other crops. So they dry using the solar dryer we gave them, and also now they have started adding value on these products. Last time also we trained them on porridge making, whereby they are adding soya, cassava, and maize to make one of the most nutritious porridge, and most of them are also giving testimony on this, which is very good. And another thing, bagia, which we have trained today, they're also adding value on cassava, making cassava an agro-industrialization crop which can change people's lives. Another issue today we have trained them is the briquettes making. We have enabled them to learn on how to make briquettes. But previously in Uganda, many organizations have been training farmers, the community using hands, and these people have been feeling pain when they mold the briquettes in their hands. But today we have made sure that they access the small briquettes machine fabricated by the youth at Africa Agro-Industrialization Academy, which is under Ebafosa and Africa Farmers Media Center. So they have got the machine which make briquettes, and this machine is going to enable them to increase on their saving, because right now we no longer need groups which produce material for consumption or for home use, but we need them for selling and getting money so that they can increase money in their pocket, and also use that money to improve on their livelihoods. So this small briquettes machine is, we are going to use an approach of the renting model, whereby all the group members are given access to come and make the briquettes in this center where this group chose to meet. This center has a solar dryer, it has the briquettes machine, and also it has members who are making bagia snacks, also members which are making porridge. So we are interconnecting this to happen in Uganda, so that one group can show others that agriculture, value addition, agro-industrialization can be seen or can be done by everyone, can be done by the smallholder farmers whom are the biggest constituency in our country or in the farming system in Africa and also in Uganda. So these are the people who are pioneering this. We shall use the smallholder farmers to pioneer agro-industrialization in Africa, and this has been seen in Uganda. So making this happen, data collection is going to happen from now to guide the group on how they are going to market, on how they are going to increase on their quality, production, and also efficiency, and also the supply to their markets, making linkages and also distribution points. This is going to be a world exemplary group.
You heard how the innovative volunteerism youth actor from Uganda, David Luganda, explained exactly how they have leveraged their skills and how they are turning agricultural waste into fuel briquettes that are replacing charcoals in community. These youth did not just wake up in the morning and they are doing this. They develop an attitude to add value to themselves. They develop an attitude to turn their talent into a skill by applying effort, and they learn. And that's why when I discussed under the discussion topic, which was values, setting standards, and value for value, I made it very clear that if we do not add value to the challenges that climate change brings to us, then we might not be able to turn to seize the opportunities in challenges. And you see how these young people are actually now generating value and turning challenges to opportunities. And in the course of doing this, they are addressing poverty. And I will just play a video so that at least you can understand what poverty is all about. Welcome back to Richard Munang's channel, where we discuss environmental solutions. Welcome back. Another discussion topic today is poverty and opportunity. Many of us grew up in communities, some of us on 1 meal a day, not because we had the choice, but just because that was the only thing that we had. It was not by choice, it was what it was. Our mothers worked so hard. Some of them left for the farm very early in the morning, and they came back late. But they were never ever discouraged by what they were doing. Many of us went to school without shoes. Yes, we walked silver kilometers to school, but we were excited always with the possibility that we can make it another day. The point I'm trying to bring up here is that we have to cultivate the attitude, which many of us do across the continent and even the world, of knowing that we can always make today better and tomorrow even excellent by giving our best now, because the only way you can be able to get something tomorrow is through what you do today. So if you complain today, you will complain tomorrow. And you will complain your way throughout the year, and you will complain your way throughout the years. And in a decade from today, the problems we were complaining in 2022 will be the same in 2032. It therefore means every challenge that we see, we have to cultivate the attitude of saying, fine,
This challenge is here to test me, and I will show the challenge that I am bigger than that challenge. But you need three things. The first is your mind. Your mind. Your mind is very, very important. If you victimize yourself by saying, I don't have it, I come from a poor family, you will become poorer. If you tell your mind, yes, I grew up in a family where we did not have a lot of opportunity, but I have the potential to reverse that, you'll become more stronger. So move away from victimhood language and say, what can I do? And the question of what can I do should always come after you ask the question, why am I doing what I want to do? Your why is the most important. When you say, why am I doing what I want to do? Why am I learning this skill of turning waste to briquettes, which is an environmental problem, but you want to create a solution for the communities? As we're speaking today, over 700,000 Africans are dying. These are not mere statistics. These are our mothers, our fathers, our brothers and sisters across the continent. They are dying not because they've committed any crime. The only thing that caused this is because they don't have alternatives. They depend on fuel wood, on charcoal, that is choking their lungs, indoor pollution, and causing lives across the continent. If you want to reverse this, and if it really matters to you, which it should matter, you have to learn a skill and devise a means to replace charcoal, and that is easy. Go online today, put in waste to briquettes, and learn that skill. And you will be devising a solution to turn waste to fuel briquettes to replace charcoal. Why? Because you want to save lives. So that's your why, to save lives. Learn a skill to fabricate a solar dryer so that mothers can dry their food in communities, not drying it in open sun light and on the ground that is contaminated with stones and soil, so they can dry on this solar dryer so that they can eat clean food and not fall sick. That's your why, to save a life in a community. So if we identify our why, then we'll be able to solve environmental challenges. Regardless of what is studied, whether it's study chemistry, physics, biology. I am actually a physics student. My degree was in physics and education, but today I'm an environmental actor. What does that mean? Even as an environmental actor, I still talk about aspects that are soft aspects. So to beat poverty, it starts with us. It starts with us accepting that, yes,
I can see here, as you can see from the voter indicating that in terms of nutrition enhancement to people, and since they use traditional food, it can help to ensure good health and avoid unnecessary diseases. Yes, that's a very good point. And that is why the system approach that we use is very, very important. And what is this system approach? How you produce food is very, very important. Producing food in a way that works with environment, not against the environment, not using chemicalized fertilizers, and using organic manure, using organic input like biofertilizer is an opportunity to keep the soil intact, but at the same time, it also creates an opportunity for young people to be able to turn agricultural waste into biofertilizer, which then will be inputs that communities can be able to use. But that's about production. Nutritious food is not just from production, but it's also about adding value, because if you notice across the continent, you will see a lot of communities, mothers, women across the continent harvesting their maize, harvesting their beans, harvesting crops, and actually drying them in open sun. And these get contaminated with stones, with soil, and then that means even if the food was produced using nature-based solutions, or what we call ecosystem-based adaptation, it will end up getting contaminated. And this is a serious risk, because food safety is a key issue, and unsafe food is actually killing a lot of people across the continent. And so adding value to it now, that's when solar dryers come in, solar fridges come in, clean energy solutions to dry the food so that at least the lifespan can be extended, but at the same time to avoid also being contaminated. And this is a big opportunity. And then when that is dried, the connection to markets now become important. And that's why looking at how bureaus of standards can then have a system approach kind of standard that shows how you produce, how you process, and how you connect to markets without adding emissions into the atmosphere become very, very important. And this is actually what young people, through the innovative volunteerism spirit, are doing across the entire African continent. I can see here a question from Marcel Desailly. Well, first of all, is a comment. He said, offering value is the foundation of personal and continental progress. Thank you, Marcel Desailly. I think there is, I can see here, another equation again from Marcel Desailly, where he says that having the right skills and attitudes is the tangible manifestation of our value. However, in Africa, value is equated to material. How do we change this? I think before I go to that question, there is another question that he brought up when the rain started beating the continent. I think, okay, if you look at the entire region, and from what you are saying is that the majority of us prefer to draw maximum value, but not to give value. I think it has three aspects that we need to look into here. First, where did we learn these attitudes? Secondly, how have those attitudes been perfected? And thirdly, how have they been sustained? So, where do they come from? How have we ingrained them? And how have we managed to sustain them? I think the first part is that the narrative of someone doing something for someone, even when people are growing up, we will hear them being told that your uncle has to do this, your cousin has to do this. And so that attitude of focusing on a product, not on a process, seems to have actually gotten integrated into the system of many across the continent. Everybody is guilty with this. And the second aspect is that with the educational system that we have had, it's one in which values are not really the underpinning pillars. Values of hard work, values of usefulness, of selflessness, of collectivism. And the educational system doesn't really focus mostly on turning challenges to opportunities. It's about getting a degree so that at least you get out of university and get a white collar job and start making money. It's not about using what you have done to then turn a challenge into an opportunity. And how these have been effectively sustained over time is that the principles and values that could have become part and parcel of society, of engaging everyone to define and determine his or her usefulness, because the purpose of life is to be useful, so that everybody lives for a reason, and that reason is usefulness, is developing value, is offering value. That narrative has been a misnomer, and therefore what has been perfected is that if you don't have, then you are poor. And the only way to get rich is if you are given. And so the dependency now has been perfected over time. And so the attitude of working with what you have to get what you don't have has disappeared. And so focus has been on wanting, rather than on focusing on what needs to be done and then focusing on doing that which needs to be done to get what you don't have. And that is how this has happened, from how the attitudes got nurtured to how they have become so ingrained because of lack of the education system, to how now they have been sustained. And I think that is it. The other question still from you, Marcel Desailly, is having the right skills and attitudes is a tangible manifestation of our value. However, in Africa, value is equated to material. How do we change this? I think one of the ways to change this is to use what I always call coalition of the willing, because what has actually been perfected over 65 years cannot be changed in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, or 2 or 3 years. But what can happen is that we can start to show that there is an alternative. Because I have this famous words that are always used, that you do not fight existing realities. You develop alternative approaches that make existing realities obsolete. And one of the way, knowing that the kind of fixation on product is now almost part and parcel, how do we start to show that at least product comes through a process, and that unless we are part of the process, we cannot turn challenges to opportunities? We have floods now, we have drought, we have the changing climate that is manifesting, and we are seeing the consequences. So instead of waiting only for emergency crises to then react, instead of being proactive, we now need to now start knowing that to be proactive, one has to become actually to start offering value. And to start offering value, then you have to be part of the process, to start making sure that at least you can be part of the process of turning agricultural waste into fuel briquettes that can then help a mother in a village to move away from depending on charcoal, to start now using a cleaner fuel source that will not allow her again to be choked with indoor pollution, which is causing the lives of 100,000 people across the continent. So the early adopters of the idea of working with what you have to become useful, to become valuable, is now very, very important, because we can use those examples, but continuously drive this aspect, which is always missing and never really discussed, inspiring people to become better versions and nurture value. Because in the 21st century, value is the biggest offer that anybody can be able to offer anywhere. And the offering that anybody can offer is to show that you can turn a challenge to an opportunity. And earlier on, I was showing a video of poverty and opportunity. You can only create wealth when you turn a challenge into an opportunity, when you solve problems. So there is always this argument that, oh, things are hard. But why should things be easy when you are not part of solving them? If you're not part of solving them, then they will not be easy. If you're part of solving them, then you will start to make them easy, and then they'll become easy for everybody, and they will have a groundswell of opportunities for everyone. And so I think this conversation is to debunk that mentality that things can just be as they are. So to your question, value currently is equated to material, and you are saying, how do we change this? So changing this is using a narrative of positivity, but building on practical realities of how it has happened. And the young people are showing this, not all of them, but we can then use that to then turbocharge the entire continent with those solutions, showing how they've happened and the processes that this has been cultivated through. And from there, continuously show that when you nurture value, you are not nurturing it only to solve problems for others, but first of all, to make yourself useful, which is the purpose of why we live. And that value is exchange for money. If you don't have value, then you cannot be able to make money. And that is why, instead of talking about skills retooling, most of the time the focus on addressing poverty is usually on hand ads. And that's a short-termic way of looking at it. If you give resources to somebody who doesn't have value, then he will finish the resources, and then the problems that he or she were facing, food insecurity, no access to water, will still perpetuate. But if the person is given a skill, then that skill can then fetch value, which then gets exchanged in terms of money. And that is how we can be able to make progress. I think there is a question here. Thank you, Devona. Yes, I think I was muted. Now, skills. Yes, I see here. Max said this. I say skills retooling as a lifestyle. Yes, it is. It must become a lifestyle, because the reality is this: when you stand on that stage anywhere in the world, it's not necessarily where you come from. It's not your country or your village. It's what you can offer. And it is when you offer that people will start to know, oh, where is he or she from? But when somebody sees you up front on that stage, they want to listen to you. They want to get knowledge. So if you don't add value, and value needs effort, because there is the attitude that, oh, it's too hard. No, someone has to do it. No, the world doesn't function that way. That kind of image that is created to think that things are easy is elusive, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't exist. So creating value is very, very important. It's very, very important. Yes, I can see. So Devina is saying, how do we address the issue of education system? That's a very important. First of all, education is not just the four walls of the classroom. Education is what starts from our family homes. and to the institutions in which many Africans are aligned to, whether it's religious institutions or it's traditional institutions. So many institutions across the continent, governance structures that can be leveraged to actually perpetuate values. So the best way to change education is for each and every one of us to start not only waiting to get a degree, but to start using what we are doing to showcase the example of how it can be done. And that's how innovative volunteerism become a very critical tool here, using what you have to get what you don't have by adding value to yourself, which is retooling your skill. And if you look at the communities that we all know, and we notice that we have young people who are doing carpentry, we have young people who are into building construction. How about starting engaging them and advising them to then be able to retool their skills and start looking at how they can make solar dryers? And this can be done through a very structured way. You can use the churches you go to, or the mosque, or religious institutions, regardless of which one you go to then start showcasing that at least they can learn a skill. And then also advising young people who go to Twitter today, to Instagram, to Facebook, to abuse only people, spending time that they could have been used to study how to make a solar dryer on YouTube, how to make fuel briquettes on YouTube, how to make fertilizer on YouTube. They spend time watching things that they have a right to do so, but the reality is that time wasted and lost cannot be regained, because actually your destiny is determined by how you use your time, and time is a factor of destiny. So if you do not use your time effectively to add value to yourself, then definitely you will then lose hours that you could have added value, and now next time you'll be doing catch up. So it's good to use every opportunity to add, and that is education. That's education. Education is not just about PhDs and masters and degrees. There are people who actually have a lot more knowledge today that have only first degrees than those who have PhDs. Education is not big grammar. Education is not about carrying shoulders. It's about preferring solutions to the community. And our mothers in villages have the best education, but they never ever went to any school. They fed us. They actually looked for money even to pay for our school fees. And they study a trade. Like my mother actually knit baskets. She actually makes them using grass to do that. And that is a skill, and that's a form of education. So that's a it was a very good question. So that's how we can change it. But that's now from an individual perspective. But it is then now when these things are done, data will be generated from all this that we can then now start to use to influence policy. You hold your MP, say, look, the schools here need to integrate these traditional approaches to ensure that every kid in school should be able to make briquettes. And you present the data of how other kids have done it and start to force them so that at least they can pass legislation. That now will be an opportunity to bring this to scale and also ensure that it become part and parcel of the mainstream development of the country. These are very simple things that can be done, but sometimes these ideas are never really discussed. The focus is mostly on things that are sensational, and sensationalization seems to be very, very attractive, but unfortunately, it doesn't get sustained for quite a very long time. Yes, I see Marcel Desailly here saying that that let me just project this. As you have clearly put it, the social institution in Africa, family and educational institutions have been at the core of reinforcing the negativity of material focus. Yes, that reinforcement has resulted to the reasons we see where we are today. In the 1970s, Africa with a population of 17% of the global community was contributing 3% to the manufacturing, global manufacturing. But today, it's not there anymore. It's below even 1.5 or even lower. And why? Because we've not been adding value to what is produced. Minerals are exported without value addition. Agricultural produce are exported without value addition. And as a result of this, they depreciate the foreign reserves. And that then means the continent exports employment and imports unemployment. And that is really something that is needs to be changed if we are to drive transformational climate action. So the key point here to those who are joining in and listening is we cannot be able to drive transformational development and more so transformational climate action without nurturing soft values of developing our skills, but the value of our attitudes to ensure that at least we have that attitude develop passion, because passion is the new currency of now, to learn a skill that can then help us to address a challenge. The difference between poverty and wealth is that there is a staircase that connects poverty and wealth. And that staircase, for you to climb on it, is called a skill. And I know that there are some people who will say, oh no, even if you have a skill and the economies are not okay, then nothing will work. So, how will the economies ever be okay when the workforce is not there? These are voluntary actions that each and imagine if someone is in a place where there is no action and he or she chooses to carry out action. And that action is to touch the lives of people, is to put food on the table, is to ensure that a mother can have access to clean cooking fuel, like fuel briquettes instead of charcoal. Will they use that solution or not? If they use it, will people buy into it or not? But if we all sit and fold our arms, will anything happen? So we must become leaders, because leadership is personal responsibility, to then be able to start addressing some of these challenges. And then from there, data gets generated and then they get informed policy. Because those who hold positions in where they make policy doesn't mean that they have all the solutions. They also look up to citizens to then be able to engineer that. So climate action solutions need each and every one. And sometimes the best climate solutions will come from those who are actually carrying out the actions at even a smaller scale. And that's what the young people are doing across the continent today. Yes. I think there is another question here which I've seen from Maxed Desai. Please keep your questions coming and your comments. We need them. We need them so that at least we can have this conversation today, actually showcasing how we can move forward. I think being part of the process here, I think Maxed Desai says, as you've clearly put it, the social institutions. Yes, I think I've shown that one. This one that is about being part of a process and not just embracing product is a key aspect, and offering value is core. How do we make people realize that our communities can actually become a market? I think the best way to make people to realize that our community can become a market is to start leveraging what is being produced, especially by these young people, and engaging the community to market those products to them and generating data of what is happening in those communities. That data then becomes the tool that we can then start to showcase that it worked. Because as we speak today, let's not forget that the mindset is that what a market is not even within Africa, that the market is always outside of Africa. That's fine. I mean, the world is interconnected. People can trade anywhere in Asia, Europe, America. That's fine. But the reality is that you can only compete from your position of strength. You cannot ignore your own market and at the same time only think of others, which is okay. But Africa should trade among Africa so that at least as you are expanding to other regions, you are actually increasing your value and your market share. So leveraging the community to accept what they need, because the community will only buy into what is closing their gap. If the community is depending on charcoal and you bring an alternative that is cheaper and more efficient, like briquettes, which is a climate resilient solution, they'll buy into it. And when they buy into it, of course, that's already your market. So the market is people, but they need to be convinced. And the best way to convince them is to develop a product that fills a gap and address the same with the solar dryer of helping mothers reduce post-harvest losses in a continent of 48 billion US dollars being lost as a result of inefficiency in the agro value chain. Bring a solution to close that. Of course, upfront, they might be hesitant because that is not the kind of development trajectory that has been happening. It's been mostly about hand acts. It's been, but when new ideas are coming to fill gaps using different approaches, expect some hesitancy. But after some time, when they see it working for other people, they will start to flock into it. So you need some patience, but consistency and persistency. Yes, I think Marcel Desailly indicates here that applied education to develop a product or service that addresses a clear gap in society and market it. This is the foundation of value. Having all 1.2 billion people prioritize this is all what we need. Thank you very much, Marcel Desailly. Please keep the ideas coming. Keep the ideas coming. We have 15 minutes to the top of the hour. And I think there is another input from Marcel Desailly, which is that I think Some schools are allowing parents to pay school fees using a barter system. Yes, where they bring their farm produce and their kids are admitted into class. Do we need more of such models? Absolutely. The reality is that the glorification of money just in cash, liquid cash, has actually defeated some of the principles that have existed in the African context, where trade by barter was utilized. Of course, if they can afford the cash, that's fine. But in case where they cannot afford cash, they should then be able to use their goods. Either they are producing food products or they are producing products that are not food. They can then be able to use that to pay school fees, and not only pay school fees, even assess produce or products. For example, if a youth is developing fuel briquettes, and there are communities that can be able to provide the waste for free, then they can calculate the value and then they exchange from the fuel briquettes that they do, and then the community gives them the waste. These are models that need to be utilized, but the attitude that no liquid cash, nothing works, is defeatist, and it's not even sustainable because you will not have money all the time. But that discussion that we can trade by barter to get what we don't have using what we have, it's a very lucrative thinking. And also this attitude that you must start at big scale without even ever tested small scale is defeatist. Start small, fail and learn. That is what is called experience. You cannot get experience when you have not failed. You will test the briquette, it will not work, you come back, change the formula. You will try to assemble a solar dryer, it will not really dry to the minimum moisture content. You will try to figure out and then you will devise another means. And in the course of doing that, you learn. It's just like speaking. People think that I was born to be an orator. You learn, you practice, and you read. And of course, you make mistakes and you perfect yourself. So the attitude of thinking that progress is linear is a fallacy, it's a false narrative. We must be able to understand that we have to endure some pain before we gain. And that endurance needs effort, it needs persistency, it needs consistency, and it needs self-discipline. It needs self-discipline. Yes. Keep the ideas coming. Keep the ideas coming. And as you keep the ideas coming, let me bring back the video where the discussion on poverty and opportunity, where you apply effort, is happening.
Poverty is a mindset issue. I gave the example of our mothers in communities who had nothing, but they believe that by doing what they can do, using what they had that time, the limited space they had to cultivate maize, beans, they can be able to feed their kids to go to school because they know that with the right education, they could be able to provide the solutions to the challenges and provide and close that gap that they were facing that time of having an opportunity. The mindset of resilience, of self-belief, of doing what you can do with what you have can overcome poverty. But to still pull our arms when we have free internet out there, sometimes we use the internet bundles to abuse people on social media. How about using that to learn a skill? How about using that to build yourself? But never forget this. The best way to make progress is to empower yourself first. If you do not empower yourself, how do you empower yourself? Self-discipline to learn a skill. Self-discipline to read. Self-discipline to become passionate. Only you can become passionate, and only you can make yourself to be passionate. People can only contribute 10%, 90%. You are the one to do it. And steer off from naysayers, oh, you cannot do that, oh, it's so difficult. No, they discourage you. If they say that, then ask them, what have they been doing? Let them allow you to do it, because at the end of the day, you are you. But if you can be able to do something that touch a life in the community, you will inspire more people and create a groundswell of solutions. And from that, people will be coming to you. You will become the go-to point. But if you wait and complain, people will run away from you. Let me tell you the last point. People generally hate negative energy, but they will never tell you. People want to be associated with people that can learn something, because they have their own strengths and they have a gap, and they want that gap to be filled. So when you come with another gap to widen the gap, it doesn't work that way, my friends. Let's become solution providers, and the environment is a $1 trillion opportunity to fill gaps in climate change by devising climate simple solutions to fill a gap in our informal sector. Do you know that the informal sector alone have a financial gap of $300 billion? Nobody is closing it. You can do it by just starting off with something simple. And never ever use the language, I don't have money to start. That's defeatist. Learn a skill. Start to do what you can do. Show people that this is what I can do a little bit. And people will come in to help you close that gap. Did you hear that? Start with what you have, not what you hope to have. By then, we will make progress. Thank you.
Start with what you have, not what you hope to have. And by then, we will make progress. Yes, by then we'll make progress. And I think I like this question that Marcel Desai have sent in, and he's saying that 60% of Africa's population are youth under the age of 30. And they have least access to opportunities. Are they to blame for this predicament? I think there are two aspects here. There are those who will blame others, and there are those who blame the youth as well. And right, and none of them is wrong. So why do I say so? They have legitimate reasons to complain, and also they do not have legitimate reasons to complain, depending on which side you are looking at this. So the reality is that if you look at the challenges that the continent is facing today, challenges of food insecurity, challenges of access to clean energy, affordable clean energy to communities, challenges to all these aspects, and I'll just mention those two. There are other challenges, but I'm talking those that can be easily, opportunities can be easily created from them. Then instead of learning a skill, which today the opportunity of having internet means that you can have access to an opportunity right in your doorstep. So when they say they are poor, but they're online, complaining and bashing. And there's nothing wrong to complain if you have the energy to, but there is something wrong when you complain and only end up complaining. So instead of using the time to study and learn something that can then help you add value and close a gap in the community, which there are so many gaps. There is waste to clean energy. That's waste, agricultural waste to fuel briquette. You do not need heavy capital to start. You can actually go online and learn this using the very internet bundles that you have been using to abuse and learn something in 30 minutes. What does that mean? And then you get to the community. You don't need to have money. You get to that mother in the community after you've learned on the internet and said, okay, this is your waste that you threw away. I want to take this waste. Then you go to another and then you look for more waste. And then you come now, you learn how to carbonize it. And with this, you just need to use local drums to do this. You carbonized it, find a way, turn it to briquettes, and then start to sell to the very community. And even if they don't have money, you give them for free to test. When they test and it is more effective and better than charcoal, they will tell you do more. What you can tell them is, okay, I don't have resources. Give me your waste too. I will do, and then I will give. Then when you do and then give back to them, they start to pay you money. You start to raise little capital. And as you're raising that little capital, you can then use that little capital to put it in a SACCO or in a chama and raise some little more money as you move ahead. That's how life is. Life is not a place of ease or celebration. It's a place where we use what we use to get what we don't have. And in the course of doing that, it will be difficult. Of course, that's part of life, because in the process, you will learn to be resilient. That's how life is. So from the policy dimension, of course, they have a legitimate reason to complain. But the question always is that if you look at any country in the African continent, there are some enabling policies. There is this attitude that goes this way, that when the enabling policies are not about money, then there's no enabling policy. But that's terrible. There are so many governments that have put in place incentives in the form of tax breaks or scrapping of value-added tax in producing clean energy solutions like briquettes, like burgers. How many times have I ever heard a youth say that, oh, we really benefited from this? I've never heard it, and I want to stand corrected, but we know that there are countries that have this. So money is not just in liquid cash, but once these waivers are there, you need to seize them with alacrity. But however, from policymakers' perspective, they also need to ensure that at least there are more financial incentives that are given to young people so that at least those who have already made the effort to start their businesses, they can sustain by taking loans at low interest rates. And if they are doing things that are adding value to the environment, that are driving low emissions development pathway, that are climate action solutions. And this is very easy. If just a quarter of the budget is actually allocated to drive youth climatepreneurship solutions, and these are channeled then to structures that youth can access, like cooperatives, like SACCOs, like chamas, like njangis, then those structures will be excellent because they can also be used as conduits for traceable action and at the same time accountability. And these are very practical, easy things that can be done. And the central bank can establish it through a risk sharing facility where there's an agreement with cooperatives based on the kind of action that can be taken that are addressing environmental, economic, and social. And that way, the development agenda of the country will be driven by this workforce called youth because they are at 60% and even more. And that way, every jobs will be created because they're doing things in an enterprising way, not in a social way only. These are very practical, simple ideas that at least we will be discussing more on the mindset sport, where we share innovative volunteerism ideas. Yes, there is another question from Maxe Desai. Thank you very much again, Maxe Desai. You say the best way to make progress is to empower yourself first. And the common denominator of self-empowerment is self-discipline. Yes, indeed, it is self-discipline because the reality is that if you are not disciplined, you will not put effort. You will spend the whole day complaining how things are not happening. The reality is that things will not just, if things are happening, somebody somewhere has done it. There's really no miracle that things will just fall into place. Somebody is somewhere sacrificing and actually enduring and cultivating the attitude of self-discipline to do it. So what if you also do it yourself? So if we can have this chain reaction, this ripple effect, a groundswell of actors that cultivate the attitude to do right, to be useful, to be selfless, to work in a collective way, then we will start to see a groundswell of actions that now will then inspire hope, and the entire continent and even the world will change. So we need this kind of narrative, this positive messaging to inspire people so that at least we can then be able to move in a transformational way. And Maxe Desai says again here that use what we have to get what we don't have. Perfect. Exactly. You can only operate from a position of strength, and the position of strength is what you have, and what you have is your skill. Your skill. If you do not have a skill and you are listening today, go and nurture your skill, retool your skill. It's not just what you study that you will focus on. You must be able to focus on something that is turning a challenge into an opportunity. That's how you can create wealth for yourself. And wealth is not just liquid cash. When you touch the life of a mother in a village, that's wealth because at least you've proven your usefulness. And from doing that, you learn. And you can then be able to produce that, whatever thing you're producing, whether it's a solar dryer, whether it's a fuel briquette you are doing, to then be able to provide it to those who may need it. You must start from somewhere. That is why there is a class 1 starting in primary school. Why don't people don't just jump to class 6 or class 7? There's a reason for starting from class 1. There's a reason you go to form 1. There's a reason you go to high school, you start in lower state. There's a reason you go to year 1 at the university. So that at least you begin from somewhere. So I've never understood this mentality that people can just leapfrog to get a product without passing through a process. That is not the right way to do it, guys. We need to be realistic. We need to be realistic. So use what you have to get what you don't have. Very comprehensive response covering actions that can be taken by youth and policymakers. Timeless. Thank you very much, Maxe Desai. It's been a great pleasure having this conversation. And thanks for saying this, that politics is a career. It is. You said that is this statement meant to dissuade dependence on politics in Africa? Well, the reality is that politics is supposed to be a conduit. It's supposed to be a conduit in which people leverage to bring solutions to the broader community. Then the question is that the case at the moment? Your guess is as good as mine. Politics is not policy, but politics is the conduit that can be used then to foster and drive policy that can then become the bigger driver of change and bring meaningful change to people's lives. So if you want an educational policy, You need legislation. And if you're in parliament, you can sponsor that legislation and drive it, and then it will bring meaningful change to people's lives. That kids should not pay school fees. Kids should be able to have nutritious feeding in school. And that all these aspects happen through legislation. But if you then don't focus on policy, which is issues based, then it becomes difficult. So I think the narrative needs to be politics for what? And it should be politics for development. And then within the politics of development, which are the issues to focus on? Adding value. Adding value. We need legislation that actually empower young people to then be able to have access to finance if they're developing local solutions to add value to what is produced. That is an incentive. And this legislation will not cost a single shilling or a single dollar, but it can be able to spur and drive economic transformational change in a country just because of the fact that when you use local materials, you get incentives from the perspective that you have tax breaks. These are practical, realistic, and if those tools they're developing to add value are climate action solutions tools like solar dryers, like solar fridges, then they will be helping the country to drive their climate implementation ambition. And that adds opportunities and it creates jobs for other youth. Very simple way of reasoning around this that can make a very big difference. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. It's been a great pleasure having this conversation with you guys. It's been amazing. And now we are at the top of the hour, and we'll be doing a lot of these to be able to ensure that at least we can start to drive this continuous narrative that we must use what we have to drive transformational climate action. And also sharing examples from innovative volunteerism youth across the entire African continent. So you will start to see a lot of them coming to this platform, the mindset sport, to discuss their lessons learned, to share the voices of innovative volunteerism actors, and to be able to also share the challenges they went through. Challenges are disguised opportunity. Having a challenge is not anything that should deter anybody, because the narrative that things are easy is not true. They have never been. If they're easy, it's just because people somewhere dedicated and focused to be purposeful and did it. So we then inherited it and thought it were easy. How did our founding fathers fight? How did they fought for self-determined rule? Was it easy? No, it was not. Now our own reality is to address challenges, and these challenges must be addressed through the lens of socioeconomics, because socioeconomic liberation is the best resilience building for climate change. When a mother can be able to put food on the table and more money in more pockets, that's resilience, and that can only come through socioeconomics. When a young person can be able to address a problem, turn waste into fuel briquettes or into biofertilizer, or turn plastic waste into pavement tires, and make money out of it, he or she becomes richer. That's socioeconomic happening through turning a challenge into an opportunity. So let's be realistic to the realities of our time and be focused and become passionate and retool our skill, and at the same time ensure that at least we develop the values that are needed, the attitude of value for value, not this attitude of getting a product without applying effort to be part of the process. Thank you very much, and do have a great day. I think I can see a note here from Marcel Desailly, who says, just a quick rejoinder, the aspect of institutions are people has been what you push. Others say that institutions don't work because of political interference. Do you agree with this? The reality is that, first of all, institutions are people, and it is people's attitudes that get manifested in any place they are. So if the attitude is that of value, then definitely the politics will be politics of value. And what is politics again? Let me still say this again. Politics is a conduit in which it's supposed to be leveraged to be able to put policies in place that can then bring meaningful transformational change to the lives of citizens and the populace. So if the people who are then driving policy have the attitude to nurture value, have the attitude to drive values that are actually those that can then be able to solve problems, then anywhere they are, there will be no issue. So the broader issue cannot be institutions in terms of buildings or structures because they're created by people, but it should be the attitude of people What is it that people don't have that needs to be there to avoid interference, or to avoid these half-baked approaches, to avoid these approaches that sometimes disregard systems thinking and systems approaches? The attitude of not being fully part of a process to achieve a product. Is the attitude of just leapfrogging to a product, which doesn't work. You want a solar dryer, you don't want to be part of understanding how to learn it. You want fuel briquettes, you don't want to be part of understanding how to learn to make them. You just want them to get it. It doesn't work that way. And so it's about value. So we need to get back to values to become useful, to become selfless, to become purposeful in whatever thing that we do, and then develop an unborrowed vision on how to take people, communities, to achieve what they don't have by doing what we do now, so that at least environmental and climate change challenges can be addressed for the collective benefit of all. That is how people will become institutions of value. So the issue is the people are not offering value or optimal value. And therefore, we end up seeing this deficit manifesting in this interference that we've mentioned. Thank you very much. And that was a quick one to end the day. Thank you guys very much. And do have a great evening. My name is Richard Munang, and I've been your host of the Mindset Spot this evening. Wherever you're watching from, have a good day, or a good night, or a good evening. Bye bye.